All right.
All right, go ahead, Odette.
And thank you so much, Ava. Well, hello, everyone. It's such a great pleasure to see so many familiar as well as new faces on the feed from our MIJE program fellows, alumni, partners, funders, supporters, broad media and stakeholder allies, and of course, new collaborators through this digital event and joining us for this interactive session today. Thank you. I'm Odette Alcazaren-Keeley. I'm the director of the Maynard 200 Journalism Fellowship Program of the Maynard Institute for Journalism Education. And on behalf of our co-executive directors, Martin Reynolds and Evelyn Sue, and our entire team, I'd like to thank you for joining us for today's webinar. It's part of our ongoing series of digital events by the Institute that's aimed to provide information, resources, support, and diverse perspectives for our broad media and stakeholder networks. And that's especially amid these unprecedented times. Now, depending on which time zone you're in, this is probably your third or fourth, perhaps it's your first Zoom session of the day, and lucky for us. And indeed, since March, as shelter in place or quarantine orders swept the nation and across the planet, we've found ourselves immersed in this new digital age, turning to various online platforms in order to work remotely, do distance learning, or socially connect. And there's a plethora out there, whether it's Google Hangouts or Classroom or Microsoft Teams. And of course, the very portal by which we're connected right now, the name that's on everybody's lips, both as a verb and as a noun, and that's Zoom. We are in fact part of the recent and corrected statistics of 300 million Zoom daily meeting participants, not daily active users, daily meeting participants. So it's a significant number. We've become video conferencing powerhouses in our professional and academic lives. And it's become imperative that we seek strategies, techniques, best practices in order to sharpen our online presence, to make our digital participation and leadership in meetings, presentations, and pitches more powerful, focused, professional, and compelling. And that is the unique expertise that our featured speaker, Tom Nixon, brings to us today in this digital event. And it is, in fact, a core competency that he brought to the Maynard 200 program last year through his dynamic one-on-one coaching with the media entrepreneurship class. And all full credit goes to our Maynard 200 intrepid media entrepreneurship track executive in residence and MIJE board member, Dixon Louie. And Dixon, delighted to invite you to say a few words about this coursework.
Okay, thank you, Odette. And this is actually my second out of 3 meetings today, Zoom meeting today. So anyway, I'm pleased to have Tom Nixon here. Odette will give an introduction, more elaborate introduction of Tom. But Tom was an instrumental part of our entrepreneur track. In fact, his course was actually the most popular, and he also provided one-on-one training with our entrepreneurs. Having a presence is not just enough to have a good business plan, but also to be able to present it. Careers have been made or broken by people that how they present, how they convey confidence. And we thought it would be great in this current times to actually have Tom talk about having a presence online as well, on Zoom, Google Hangout, or Skype, or wherever you may use. And without much ado, I'll turn it back to Odette.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Dixon. Tom and Dixon, it's very exciting that we have several of our Maynard 200 fellows, not just the media entrepreneurship class that Tom had his coaching with, but also fellows from other tracks and alumni and fellows from both years, 2018 and 2019, alongside all of our participants from such a great cross-section that I mentioned earlier that are going to be asking their questions. And speaking of questions, a quick logistics to say, Tom and I are really looking forward to a robust, interactive conversation and discussion with all of you, and that's through your questions. Please plug in your questions using the chat box that's at the lower middle part of your screen right there. You can put your question right in or indicate that you'd like to ask a question. If time allows, we can target to unmute you and have you be able to directly ask your question to Tom or do a follow-up. And that's throughout the session for Tom to incorporate these queries and these comments and these insights throughout his talk. So with that, It is my great pleasure and a great privilege that I'm introducing our featured speaker for today, and that's Tom Nixon, based in Marietta, Georgia. And Tom is a veteran speaker coach, author, and founder of the Ready to Speak online courses. For more than 15 years, he's helped senior level executives, businesses of all sizes and shapes, and Hall of Famer speakers. And his clients have included Georgia Pacific, Emory University, Coca-Cola, Habitat for Humanity, and Visa International. So Tom, thank you so much for being with us, leading this session, especially amid these unprecedented times. And so please take it away.
Thank you very much, Odette. That was a great introduction. I have enjoyed working with the people at Maynard so much. It's been an inspiring connection for me, and I'm so happy to be able to present to you all today. I don't have to tell you, things have changed just a little bit in the last few months. And one of the things that's changed is we've all been thrown into this crazy Zoom world. We are all in the Zombie apocalypse. And it's not just that we are all online trying to figure out how this all works and how we should act, how we should arrange ourselves, how we should talk. But we get to look at each other in a situation like this where there's 20 or 30 people in a meeting, people are distracted, people are falling asleep, people are going to get a cup of coffee, whatever it is. There are so many ways that this has become this crazy quilt of trying to communicate and connect with each other that many of us just accept the low level of engagement and a low level of professionalism, which in a way is a very, very good thing, because what this does for those of us who want to step up and become more professional, become more adept at making a connection or pitching or making presentations to people, this sets the bar for fairly low. And we can take our skills with just a few minor and maybe a major tweak or two and get really, really good at online presentations. So that's the kind of thing I want to talk about today. I want to give you a quick example, and this is going to be our first interactive thing. So I'm going to try and play a video here. This is probably a month old, this interview that was on USA Today on their online. It was one of their reporters was interviewing Dr. Tom Frieden, who was is the past head of the CDC. And I just want you to keep an eye on, we're going to play the video for maybe 15 or 20 seconds, just enough to get an idea of what we're looking at here. There will be sound, but the sound's not that critical. Just compare the two. Compare the reporter, who does a very good job, it's very credible, with the professionalism of somebody like Dr. Frieden, who has been very, very well coached, probably for many, many years, in how to be online, how to be on camera, how to be on TV. So I'm going to play this, and then we'll talk about it a little bit.
Job losses. So what are the risks and benefits to transitioning? That's exactly the right way to think about it. What's the cost and what's the benefit? And right now, it is understandable that people are wondering, first off, this is unprecedented. There's never been an action like this. Second, for most Americans, the risk is extremely low. So people may think, isn't this an overreaction? And yet, if you think about it, it's crucially important that we do several things.
Okay, I'm just going to stop it there because the content isn't really that important. What I want to get everybody to do, jump on the chat and tell me what you saw. Tell me the differences that you saw between the two. Maybe there's things we can use that one did and one didn't do that we could become much, much better at ourselves when we present. We getting responses, Odette?
So far, not yet, Tom, and I'll let you know definitely once I see
well,
it.
Let me warm it up by pointing out some of the things that I saw, and because they were subtle differences. They weren't huge. The person who was doing the reporting wasn't horrible. He was in his office. Let me see if I can go back to, all right, that's a still. Let's take a look at that. He was in his basement office where we all are these days. He had a light source behind him so that the overall image of his picture was not real crisp, not real sharp. His face was in a little bit of shadow. Not a major problem, but not as professional as it could have been. He was looking off camera at the image on the screen, which we all want to do so much. We are geared to look at the picture of the person that we're talking to instead of into the camera where our audience lives. So he was looking off camera. He did not have good light on his face. He was dressed in business casual, which was not inappropriate. But when you compare that with Dr. Frieden, you can see Dr. Frieden had not a super formal jacket and tie, but a nice jacket and tie on. He had nice light on his face. He had a subtle background behind him. He looked directly into the camera. I don't know what his setup was in terms of, did he have a laptop or did he have a monitor someplace? Or maybe there was an actual film crew there that was shooting him with a camera so that he knew exactly where to look. But whatever it was, the effect was just that much more professional. And I think this is something we can learn from in terms of how we present ourselves when we're trying to connect with our audience, when we're trying to show them that we're just that much better than that barely passable average that we see on Zoom all the time.
And Tom, talking about comments and talking about feedback, your comments right now, your inputs actually aligns with several that has come through the chat box from our participants. Some great feedback here from Michaela Rodriguez. The lighting was better on the guest side. Lorna Lardisabaldid says the guest was well dressed, just as you pointed out. And Lorna also adds the light source was clear, the lighting was much better on the guest side. And Christian Jeffers says the reporter was not facing the window. And he also, like me, so she does want to ask a question here, is using his over-the-ear headphones. I would like to know how to deal with sound echo without the headphones, if that's something I need to worry about. And there's a couple more comments here, but let's start with Kristen on that point.
On the echo,
and the use of the headphones, yeah.
The use of the headphones. I've been on top-notch calls with experts speaking using a headset, and I have a headset with a microphone. I have a headset with a microphone like this that I use sometimes. My setup works very well. I have a separate camera that has an excellent microphone in it, and I'm very pleased with how that sounds in the studio space that I have. So I live with that. But I know many people use their iPhone earbuds, and that's acceptable to a certain extent. If you can get away with it, if you can, one of the things I'm going to recommend is that you consider buying a separate camera that plugs into the USB port. This can make a huge difference in the quality of the image and the quality of the sound. So there's no perfect solution to this. There's only compromises that you can make, testing things out, trying things, see what works better than this, see how you can make things work. So I wish I had a pat answer, here's how you solve that problem, but Zoom is not a perfect platform because it's online. So we have to make those compromises the best that we can in our personal world.
And Tom, just wanted to surface a couple more comments, and in a way it dovetails into questions from Daniela Rible. The eye contact into the camera by the guest is definitely something that was very valuable to note. Dr. Frieden, according to Gladys Lee, Dr. Frieden wasn't wearing a headset. It's a little more presentable. You addressed that, and just an appreciation for Kristen's great point, because Gladys does mention it's for some of them, including herself, this is something that she sometimes needs to use. And Tom, we have a question from Dixon in terms of what camera and microphone do you use or recommend? And we had this quick conversation, Tom, about what's within our best capacities. We come from different sources of budget and sources of capacities. What is available out there at the most, at that basic reasonable level within everyone's general budget capacities?
Okay, I've got a little section in my slide deck where I'm going to talk about equipment. So let me put that off until we get there. I've got some specific recommendations. Depending on where your budget is, you can go pretty first class for under, say, $500, but you can also get very, very good by doing a few things for pretty much next to nothing. So we'll talk about that in just a minute. There is a tip I want to give you. A couple of you have already suggested how powerful it is to be looking directly into the camera versus looking down at the screen. We are geared to know exactly where people are looking, where their eyeballs are going. So it makes a huge difference that you look into the camera as much as you can. Now, I have to glance down at the screen to see my slides, etc. But I'm always reminding myself to look back into the camera. And one of the things you can do is get a good old FedEx envelope and cover up your screen. If you're going to be presenting, if you're going to be talking for any length of time and you don't need to actually look at the people on the screen, cover it up with something so that you're not tempted to glance down there, because we are so strongly drawn to that human face that we're talking to. So I found that to be a very, very useful tip.
And just one last kind of bookend to that point from another participant, Marie-Lorraine Moliares, saying just how important it is to look directly into the camera, address, your audience directly, just reinforcing your point, Tom, and that's such a great tip of using that FedEx envelope. Just
FedEx is,
thing, but
for my laptop, it's the perfect size. So.
As we go on, Tom, I'll be tag teaming with our great colleague Ava here, and we'll ask folks if they want to actually ask questions directly. Maybe there's more of an elaboration. We can go ahead and have them either unmute themselves or we'll unmute their microphones. But for now, Tom, let's proceed.
Okay. Odette, I probably put too much information in here, and I front-loaded it so that I get to the important stuff first, but I'd like to move fairly quickly because I do want to get to a lot of your comments, but there's a lot of little things I'd like to cover. So let me move along. So today, here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about, and this is the most important thing in the whole section of what I want to talk about, is how you need to orient your ideas and your frame of mind that you are the star of the presentation. Excuse me. And the things that you need to do to make yourself that professional person. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk real fast about learning your platform. We're all Zoom experts right now. You probably all know more about Zoom than I do, so I'm not even sure I have to go over this too much. I'm going to talk about how to equip your studio, how to get some things into your home studio, wherever it might be, or your office studio, so that you can look a little bit more professional. I'm going to give you a few tips on how to rewrite your script and rewrite your outline, how to change things up a little bit to match up with the particular needs of people as they present, as they watch you online. We're going to talk about some slide changes, some things you can do to your slides that can, again, make them more in line with how people perceive your presentation online. And then we're going to finish up with a big finish, the big grand finale. And along the way, we're going to have lots of questions, lots of opportunity for questions. So let me jump right in. So here are some quick things that are different online, things that you should keep in the back of your mind as you're presenting, as you're creating, as you're writing. The first thing is, most of the time, you're going to be on a small screen, and sometimes you're going to be on an iPhone. You're going to be on a really small screen. So this has a lot to do with the type of images that you use, the type of visuals that you use. But that's something to remember, that you are going to be much smaller than you would be obviously in real life. You're often going to have to deal with bad connections. Voices are going to break up. People are going to freeze. Things are going to go wrong. I've been kicked off. I've been in the middle of making a presentation and gotten kicked off and had to reboot my entire machine and get back on. I'm sure it's not going to happen today, but these things do happen, and we have to be mentally ready for them. You have to think about bad production, your lighting, your audio, your video. Zoom is an amazing piece of technology, but it's still trying to cram in a gazillion gigabytes of information into a tiny little phone line. that goes out to the rest of the world. So there's going to be snafus, there's going to be problems. And this is a biggie, you have to deal with distractions. People's dogs are going to come in, their kids are going to come in, they're going to want to get a cup of coffee, they're going to have to go to the bathroom. These are all things that you normally don't have to deal with when you're at a board meeting or when you're in a presentation, when you're talking to a group of people in a more formal setting. You're going to have to talk about, we're going to talk about engagement, how engagement, keeping your audience engaged and focused on what you're talking about is going to be such a powerful thing. And then we're going to, the one thing you have to deal with that you can fix is your presence, whether or not your energy is too low, whether you're too calm and soft-spoken, whether you have low emotion, whether you have low ability to connect with other people. And I know that this talks about the concept of people, maybe there's introverts or people who don't like to present, but who have to do these meetings with their board or with people they're trying to appeal to or pitch to. The overall comment I have is these are skills that you should stretch your comfort zone a little bit, push yourself out of that, become a little bit more energetic, become a little bit more engaging. And you'll find that as you push that comfort zone just a bit, as difficult as that might be in the beginning, you're going to get better at it and you're going to get better. And I've got some help along the way. We're going to talk about that in just a second. So my big presentation message to you is that in-person presenting is about connection. When I'm standing on a stage and there's 50 people or 100 people or 1,000 people in front of me, it's all about me making a personal connection with the people in the front row or in the back, big gestures, using stories that connect and making eye contact and all that really good stuff. When you're online, you lose most of that ability to connect, most of that personal experience. And what you end up being is your online is more about engagement, more about keeping people focused on what you're talking about, keeping people sitting in their seats, watching you, listening to you, whatever you're going to be talking about. You want to constantly be keeping them focused on where you are and what you're dealing with. So evidently I don't know if I've done this or somebody else did, but I've drawn on my screen a little red mark, and let me see if I can get rid of it real quick.
I thought you were pointing us to those key elements.
I don't think I did that. Yeah, it's one of those cool things about Zoom. Oh, there it goes. Okay, I did it. Okay, all right, hopefully that won't happen again. All right, so what I want you to do, think about when you're presenting on Zoom, you are presenting to a classroom of adults who are acting like children. They have the attention span of your crazy 5-year-old nephew who can't sit still for 30 seconds. And keep that in mind. That's the type of person you have to keep their attention focused on where you're going. So, one more, let's go. So I want to talk to you about getting good on camera. There goes another streak. I don't know how that happens. Isn't that funny?
Oh.
Zoom has definitely have some technological challenge. So let's talk about getting good on camera. Okay. I would like to suggest to you, and this is what I talk to professional speakers about. This is what I talk about people who are regularly presenting, maybe marketing people who are regularly presenting to their prospects or their clients. And this is something that I think can translate very well to what you're doing and the type of field that you might be in. To get good on camera is a critical skill. And it's not, you may be a great presenter. You may be terrific in person. You may be able to do all those great things that a great speaker can do to motivate their audience. But on camera is substantially different. And I would suggest to you that you should take a 5 to 10 minute portion of your presentation or of your pitch or whatever you have and open up Zoom, record it, try it every day. Try to get better and better at it. Make it as real as you can. Dress appropriately. Make this a real practice, a real rehearsal. Dress appropriately. Stand, which is what I'm doing now. Now, standing is not always the answer to how you should be presenting yourself. It is a little bit more formal. It is the kind of thing that you would do if you're making a one-to-many presentation like this. I'm talking to you as though you were in a room with me. Now, if you're in a more intimate setting, you're in a boardroom, maybe when you're having back and forth conversations with people, sitting may be more appropriate also. It's a judgment call, but if you can, standing sets the tone for the importance of what you're about to say to your audience. So I would recommend at least considering the idea of raising your camera up so that it's eye level with you and standing and making your presentation that way. Then you need good lighting, good sound, and the camera angle, like I said, should be at eye level. So we'll talk about the equipment that gets that done in just a second. Number two, I want you to record your Zoom. I want every day, if you can, record a 5, 10, 15-minute Zoom, or do it on Facebook Live, or use a video camera, or whatever you can to record something so that you can look at it later. And I know everybody hates to watch themselves on video, especially at first. It's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I look like that. I can't believe my voice sounds like that. I don't understand why anybody would want to listen to me. Everybody feels that way. Too bad. Get over it. You need to get more comfortable with yourself. And here's what's going to happen as you do this every day and watch it every day. You're going to see things that you can't live with, and you're going to change them. Maybe you make too many uhs and ums, or maybe you touch your hair, or whatever it is. Things like that, they're going to be so obvious when you're recording it and looking at it. You will change those. Then you're going to see other things, and you're going to say to yourself, you know, that's who I am. And as you go through that process, you're going to become more real. You're going to become more comfortable with who you are. You're going to become more transparent, and you'll be able to connect with your audience much more, because your audience doesn't want you to be perfect. They want you to be a human being. So this is how you do it. You do it every day. When I created my course back 1.5 years ago, I created this online course for presentation skills. And I knew that I was not good on video. I knew that I had very little experience other than the every now and then the YouTube video that I would record. Over the period of time to record the 50 or so videos that are on my course, I probably recorded 200 or 300 of them. And the first ones were horrible. They oh my gosh, I couldn't believe how bad they were. But over the time, I watched them, I edited them, I looked at them, I got better, I got more comfortable. And I think a lot of it is getting more comfortable with who you are and how you present yourself. That confidence is the most important thing in the world. So I suggest to all of you, if you are serious about this, about being a professional person on camera that connects with your audience in a real way, that looks like that Tom Frieden in the beginning, then record yourself every day. Push yourself through it, as uncomfortable as it may be in the beginning. Then number 3, if you really want to jump into this, get a partner, get somebody who will do this with you, and you can go back and forth. You can critique each other. Excuse me. You can do it as often as you can connect up and do it, and then you can maybe present it to your work group or to somebody else. So the more you practice, the more you do this, and then the more you put it out into the world, the better you're going to get. It's going to be a constant improvement thing. And you will be amazed at not only the difference in the quality of the videos that you create, but you'll be amazed at how comfortable you feel connecting to people. Now, I'm in a room right now with nobody here. I can see Odette on my screen. I can't see anybody else. But I feel like I'm talking to someone. Maybe I'm not talking to anybody. I don't know. But I feel like I'm talking to a group of people. And it's just because I've built up that comfortable level. And I think that anybody can do that. And no matter whether you're an introvert, no matter whether you hate the idea of being on camera, everybody can get a little bit better. And by getting a little bit better, you're going to be so much better than all the rest of the people on Zoom. So that's what I would suggest to you to practice. Practice is the professional's secret sauce. It's the thing that every professional speaker knows. They may have great stories, they may have great stage skills, they may have this, but what they've really got is the ability to practice. So let me open this up Do we have anybody that would want to ask about different types of practice or questions about what we've just talked about?
Let me unmute myself right there.
Okay.
There are a couple of comments and questions coming through, Tom, as you were speaking and sharing these points. Ellen, just reinforcing that strategy, that tip of practicing with a partner is such an important point and just helps with the overall delivery, getting that.
It needs to be a trusted partner too. Your spouse may not be the right person. Your partner may not be the right person. You need somebody who is going to be fair and honest with you, but not overly critical.
Right. Important to get that honest feedback that's going to be really constructive. Mandela Parkway just wants to double check. I think earlier at the top of your conversation and your talk about when you say camera, we are talking about that little green light at the top of our screen, correct?
Right, right. That's where everybody lives. They're all inside there.
We're maintaining that eye contact, Mandela, right there in that light. So that's our little signal point, our North Star, to know that that's our audience right there. Carol Kelly wants to ask the point about background. And this really, I want to build on this. She is asking about having the bookcase and various elements behind you. What kind of background is ideal or something you would advise? And now we're seeing in professional settings like this, like in a Zoom presentation or when you're pitching, is it advisable to use the logo of your organization or perhaps your consultancy or your business or a background through a green screen or a virtual image? What would you advise, Tom?
Okay. I am opinionated about this, but I understand that people have different ideas, different things. I have my bookcase. This is a real bookcase. I've been told that it's very confusing and there's too much going on back there, and I should probably get rid of it and have a more plain background. I don't know the answer to that. That has to do with who I am. This bookcase is who I am, so I'm going to live with this for now. I think your background should not be distracting. I've seen a lot of people on Zoom. There's a closet back there with the door open, and all I want to do is, what's going on in there? Who's going to come out of that closet? Or you don't want the background to distract from who you are and what the message you're bringing. And so that may be a good criticism of my bookcase. I don't know. The green screen and the Zoom backgrounds is a whole nother issue. I find, first of all, the technology that Zoom has is very rudimentary. As I'm sure many of you know, you see people's hair dropping away and you see people's arms disappearing and all sorts of things. Green screen technology in a high-end editing program is very sophisticated and does an exceptional job, especially with fuzzy hair and things like that. And I don't have that problem, so I could use that. I find them artificial. I find them amateurish, maybe I should say. Now, I've seen a couple of people load an image in their background that maybe has a logo on the side, like you said, like a branding for their organization. If it's done right, I think it could look good. If it's done wrong, it will look amateurish. The thing to do is try it out and test it. Now, the thing that makes the green screen, in Zoom work much better is good, strong lighting on you, on your face. If Zoom can detect, if you just have normal ambient room light and your face is in somewhat shadow and it's not able to detect where the edges of your body are and everything like that, it's going to have trouble figuring out how to replace all that. So if you are going to use the green screen or that feature in Zoom, I would suggest making sure you've got really good lighting on your face from the front, and we're going to talk about lighting in just a second. So anything else?
That's so key, Tom. And, you know, as I look at your graphic, I just want to invite all our participants are folks there. If you want to just indicate that you want to ask a bit more involved question, we can unmute your microphone. In terms of practice challenges, perhaps you'd like to share an input or an experience and have Tom address a specific question. Please go ahead and ping us on the chat box on that. Our earlier thread dovetails with what Martin, our co-ED, is asking in terms of having that virtual background. Is it necessary or distracting? And I think you were able to give us some really great advice points on that. Dixon Louis would like to kind of pivot a little bit in terms of dress code. What types of professional dress code tips would you have when we're doing these pitches or these business calls or these professional Zoom meetings?
Let me draw on my experience as a speaker coach and as a professional speaker. The unwritten rule is that when you're speaking to a group of people, you want to be one little level dressed better than the people that are in your audience. Now, in this day and age, obviously I'm an old guy. A lot of people in the millennial generation, in some of the conferences I've seen, they like to wear jeans and a t-shirt, and if that's appropriate, that's fine. But in general, if you're talking to a group of other people, other business owners, other executives or something like that, you want to be at least dressed at their level. If they're all wearing jackets and ties, you're going to feel funny not having a tie on or not having some sort of business attire for the ladies. If everybody's sitting around in blue jeans and a t-shirt, then I would step up just one level from that. And it just shows a matter of respect for your audience, that you put in the thought and you put in the care to dress appropriately for that. Now that's a little bit old school, but I think that that's still a pretty good rule to follow.
And Tom, and forgive me as I was trying furiously to just coordinate with folks on the chat here, we're actually going, with the help of my colleague Ava, we're going to unmute Hélène Biandudi-Hoffer out of New York. She's one of the 200 Media Entrepreneurship Fellows from last year, took your dynamic coaching, and she has a specific question for you. Go ahead, Hélène, and thank you.
Thank you, Tom. It's so good to see you. And this is really great information that you're sharing. So thank you. My question is, when we are, whether leading a webinar or presenting or in a business meeting on Zoom, what do we do when the inevitable, at times, disruption comes through? So for me, it's the dog will bark incessantly if someone's delivering a package, or if he sees a dog across the street and I'm presenting. I'm curious in terms of advice that you would share, like, do we act as though it didn't happen, or do we acknowledge, that it did and move on? So what would you suggest for that?
Well, I always default towards being genuine and being honest. My dog right now would be barking, except I've got him locked in the kitchen where he can't see the neighbors walking by. So that's my solution, because that's happened to me many times before. I will say, excuse me, I have to go kill my dog or something like that. But if something happens that you're not ready for, just admit to it. Everybody's going to know about it. So if you try to ignore it and there's that barking in the background, or my cough the way it's going, and you don't recognize it, it's going to be kind of that elephant in the room type of thing. I think you should just come right out and say, that's my crazy dog, or these are my kids. Excuse me while I push them out of the room, or whatever that is. People don't expect you to be a machine, especially online, especially on Zoom. There's a casualness about it. There's a realness about it. And if you acknowledge that reality, I think that you're going to be fine.
Hélène, thanks so much for the question. I think more and more as we're immersed in this new landscape and this digital wave, this digital surge, and being shelter in place more and more, we're seeing the authenticity of our human experience. And we've I think, taken on the sensibility of being so compassionate and empathetic to each other. And yet there's, as Tom says, there's that bounce back in that professional manner, and just knowing your content and bouncing right back and having that sense of humor point that really brings it home and shows your personality, and in a way engages your audience even more.
Yep.
Tom, so far we're on a break from questions here. If you want to move on to a couple more.
Let's move on. I've got a bunch more I'd like to cover, so let's see how far we can get with this all. So learn your platform. We're not going to go into this at all. The only thing I would suggest is if you are on Zoom regularly, know where all the buttons are, know how to turn the things on and off, know how to share your screen, know how to use the chat. One of the things that if you're on a presentation like this, having a moderator like Odette is doing here, who can read the chat for you and give it to you instead of you trying to search around for on your screen, is a very useful thing. There is there's a whiteboard ability to use on Zoom. I've never used it personally, but I've seen people use it very effectively. If you get good at it, if you get good at the survey function, use that. If you're not good at it, if you're not being professional, if you're awkward, if you're taking 5 minutes to set it up, your audience is not going to be very tolerant of that. So make sure you're good at these things before you use them. So I'm going to move right on. I don't want to spend too much time on the platform. We're all Zoom pros by now anyway. So I'm not even going to, unless somebody has a quick question about Zoom challenges, I'd like to keep moving.
Go ahead and keep moving, but maybe
Right, here we go. All right, get the right gear. This is something everybody wants to know. We all have our laptops or we're on our iPad. How many people are on iPads? Is there a lot of people? I can't see people raising their hand, but I'm curious. I was on a meeting the other day where there were 3 or 4 people on iPads down on their desk. And so I was looking right up their nostrils and it was like, this is not your best look. So, but what I'd like you to suggest, here are some things that you can get that will help you out. Probably one of the best things that I've gotten is I've gotten a separate camera. I got a Logitech, it's a Logitech 920. When this whole coronavirus thing started, they were $49. Now, if you can't even find them, somebody scooped them all up and is charging $250 or $300 for them. I think the price is going to come back down once they catch up with the supply. But this is a great camera. It's high definition. It's got a great microphone. I can put it on a light stand and put it wherever I want in the room. I can clip it to my laptop and have it replace the camera that's there, or I can put it on a light stand and put it anywhere I want. So a USB camera, if you can get it for $50, that's a great buy. I think that's a very practical thing. The next thing, the lights are really what sets it apart. And you don't need professional lights. I have 2 large lights here that are hung from my ceiling. That are just above my eye level. They're high enough so they don't reflect in my glasses, but they give a lot of light on my face so that the camera's going to actually do a much better job of taking your image when there's good light on you. It's going to be much sharper. It's going to look so much better. So what can you do if you don't have, and these 2 lights, a light kit like the one I'm showing you here, you go on Amazon, it's about $150 if that's within your budget. If you don't have that, just make sure you have good, bright lighting ahead of you. Not point lighting, not like a single lamp on like a desk lamp facing right at you, but maybe a table lamp that's got a shade on it or something like that. That's lighting your face instead of lighting the background or coming from behind you. You want lights on your face and having them up a little bit higher than your camera so you don't see the reflections in your glasses. Lighting is really, really important. Most cameras on most laptops will adjust for the color. So if you have yellow lights, which is typical indoor light, a couple of table lamps, a couple of nice lamps on either side of you on your desk is going to do so much for the look of what you're presenting. And then we talked about the background, having the uncluttered background. I would suggest, if you can, have a space in your office, your home, with a blank wall or with some simple artwork, like Odette has behind her. Some simple artwork, a nice casual place. There's nothing overly distracting. When we go, I'm going to show you that the image of that interview back at the end of this, if we get to it. You'll notice that Tom Frieden has a very simple piece of artwork behind him. It's almost like the kind of thing you'd see at a Holiday Inn, but it's It's non-distracting. It doesn't draw your attention, but yet there's something there. It's a little bit more than just a blank wall. If you have trouble with sound, if the sound is not good for you, you may want to invest in a microphone. There are USB microphones. They can cost anywhere from $75 to thousands of dollars, and you don't need a super expensive one. But if you've got a bad echo, or if the microphone on your laptop just isn't working right and it's giving you lousy sound, people will tolerate a bad image, but they won't tolerate bad sound. So make sure your sound is at least up to a certain level where it's comfortable to listen to, especially if people are going to listen to you for any length of time like this. So that's really just a quick and easy. You don't need to spend any money if you can get some lights in front of you and you've got a reasonably good camera on your laptop and the microphone picks things up, you'll be good to go. Lighting is first, then maybe get a separate camera. So is there any questions on this? Oh, let me, I've got a couple of images here I just pulled off the internet. Here's a woman sitting at her desk. She's got a screen. I assume the camera's somewhere in there. I don't even know where it would be, but I assume that she's looking at a camera. Notice that there's a window in front of her, a big broad light source that's not going to give harsh shadows on her face. I think that's a good combination right there. That, if you can do something like that, no need to spend extra money. Just get that nice, bright, wide light source on your face. Here's another image I pulled off. Evidently, somebody's selling this. This is a camera that clips on your laptop and some crazy light system here. This is way, way too much. And if you are going to buy lights like this, or if you're going to place lights like, if you have glasses, be very aware that lights in the wrong position are going to draw big reflections on your glasses and are going to become very distracting. And one more thing about lights in front of you and your eyes. If you can get your lights to a position where they're providing what's called catch lights, those are the little white, bright highlights in the iris of your eye, or in your eye. That goes a long way towards your viewers looking at you and thinking you're alive and you're giving full attention. The catch lights are a photographer's clue that he's getting the eyes right on his subject. So you don't necessarily want your lights way off to the side where you won't get any catch lights, where you won't see that nice little bright light in there. It makes you look like you're paying attention a lot. So that's pretty much it for equipment. There's a million things you could do. You could have a whole video studio here, but I don't think you need to do that initially. Get some good lights, maybe get a camera, and then you'd be good to go. So anything else? Any questions?
Well, in terms of gear, Tom, Martin Reynolds, our co-ED, actually does have a question specific to that, and then a question on a different tangent. But Martin wonders whether the cameras on the newer Mac laptops or desktops, are they sufficient? And maybe if you have some input vis-a-vis maybe Macs from 2016, 2017.
I don't know. That's the quick answer. I would see, first of all, if it's a HD camera, if it's shooting. Some of the older laptops have cameras before they became HD, and they look like, I don't even know what they look like. They look like things that we saw 10 years ago on YouTube, really pixelated or coarse. Most new laptops are going to have an HD camera. I think before you do anything, get some strong lights on your face. And I think that's going to show up the weaknesses or the strengths of the camera more than anything else.
And just in terms of lighting, and thanks for that, Tom, a couple of questions are kind of intersecting here, and a couple of folks are surfacing ring lighting. What do you think about ring lighting? Some YouTube presenters are using ring lighting. That's something you would...
it's the big thing. Okay, ring lights were invented. Actually, they were invented by scientists to take pictures of funguses and little tiny things. They put the lens of the camera directly inside the ring and shot that. And then fashion photographers found that that ring lighting gave a very nice flat light to a beautiful person, a woman or a man's face, and so they used it for that. Ring lightings were initially made so that you would put your lens in the center of that ring. Now, a lot of people have ring lights and don't do that. They set them up high above the camera. Ring lights are great. The lights I have are pretty much flood my face. I don't have any shadows, so it's almost the same type of thing. The thing I would caution you about, though, is if you're wearing glasses and you put your camera inside the ring, you're going to see these crazy rings reflected in your glasses, and you're going to see them reflected in your eyes. But more importantly, you're going to see them reflected in the glasses, and it's going to become very distracting. So I know a couple of people that use ring lights, and they use them off camera. I think they work very, very well.
And that's good to know, Tom. Another question on lighting. Daniela Rible asks, would natural light where a presenter is looking at a window, is that something you would advise? Would that work?
Yes, I think that would work. Let me go back to this. You can see that there's this room is being flooded with light from this big window. I think something like that would, if you can be in a situation like that where you have big natural light coming at you. Now, again, if you wear glasses, you want to test it out and see. You don't want to see that window being reflected all the time in your glasses. So it's just something you have to test out. But I think having a big natural light window in front of you or just off to the side would be a great resource, great source of light. Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Tom. A quick last question, and totally outside of the lighting and gear tangent here from Martin, and it's about wearing shoes on Zoom, and it just makes me reflect. You know, we're living in this virtual world. We're living and working in this new virtual world, and it almost aligns with how we look at our professional psyche. And in my own experience, when I moderate the sessions, as we're doing right now, I pretty much force myself to get out of the sweatpants, even though the sweatpants might not necessarily be seen. You know, I've got my top half, you know, my torso here on screen, but just that psyche of knowing that I'm dressed professionally, I'm ready to go. It's almost like arming yourself in battle, and even wearing shoes.
Right.
Kind of getting into that psyche of presenting in that professional manner. So Martin's wondering, does wearing shoes help, you know, that outlook, that thinking, and that overall demeanor as we present? And is it great to kind of just anchor our feet on the ground, even as we're looking at a screen?
That's a very, very personal choice. I'm wearing my most comfortable shoes now because I'm standing up for a couple of hours, which is not the thing that I want to do the most, but so I'm wearing my most comfortable shoes. I think dressing for success, if that motivates you to be more engaged, to be more energetic, to be more polished, to be more professional, I think that's a great resource. Wearing your Batman pajamas is just fine if that works for you. Whatever works.
Is just being very careful that camera is not going to zoom out
right.
in inappropriate time, as we've seen it. But again, it's against.
Well, there's already a whole bunch of stuff on the internet about people that have had either been showing the fact that they weren't wearing pants, or things going on in their background, or all sorts of things like that. So if you're doing something that's humorous, that's fine. But if you're doing something where you want to be taken seriously, you may want to avoid some of those pitfalls.
That's true. We are on a break here with questions, Tom, and we are approaching kind of the top of our hour here. You're at Eastern, we're at almost 12 noon Pacific, but I think you have a couple more key points. We're going to see, we might have a couple more questions in the chat. But go ahead with maybe some of your wrap-up points.
All right. Well, I've got two more sections. I can kind of blow through them real quick. Let's just jump in and see where we go with them. So rewrite your script. The way you organize material needs to be subtly and in some ways majorly different than how you would if you're presenting live and in person. And one of the biggest things I think you can do is to create what's called a through line. And that's a theme, an idea, and a lot of times it's your goal, your big message. Create that and then have everything in your presentation refer back to that. So you are not getting off script, you're not wandering off into who knows where, and your audience can jump in, because a lot of times audiences are jumping in at various points. They can jump in and they can still get the gist of what you're saying. They can still get the big message. So create a through line and come back to it often, keep coming back and letting your audience know that this is where you're going, this is your big message, this is even going to be your takeaway. Keep things moving steadily. Everybody's distracted when they're online. There's email to check, there's coffee to get, there's dogs to play with, there's all sorts of other things going on. Keep your ideas moving quickly, but not so quick that people can't keep up. You want to keep them engaged. That's why I said, instead of connection, engagement is what you should be thinking about. I don't want to have a lot of downtime. I don't want to have big pauses. I don't want to tell my big long stories. I want to keep things moving. I want to keep the fire hose of information coming at a pace that you can get, but that you are going to be thinking, I don't want to miss this. I want to keep up with this. I want this. This is valuable stuff. I want this to keep coming, and I'm not going to wander away and get a cup of coffee. So keep things moving steadily. Your story should be short and to the point. Don't have time for big, long stories. When you're on stage and you're creating that big emotional connection, that's a different deal. This is not that. Your ability to create that connection is pretty much gone. So keep your stories short and very much to the point. Build in your engagement. And by that, I mean, build in your chats. I have slides that specifically remind, if I didn't have those slides that say, go to the chat, I would blow right through that, because that's the way I present. Build in your slides and in your script parts where you're going to stop and ask questions, ask the audience to get on the chat, ask them to raise their hand, talk to this or talk to that. Use the tools that you have in your platform. Use them to keep the audience engaged. If I'm asking you questions all the time, if I'm giving you the opportunity to become involved in this presentation, you're not going to be wanting to go wander away and not pay attention. So build in the engagement. And always remember, you have make your ideas, make your concepts crystal clear. There's no time for confusion when you're online. If you start to confuse things, if you start to wander off and create these little rabbit holes of information, people are going to go, I can't bother with this. I'm just going to leave. I don't want to deal with this. So make sure your ideas and your concepts are crystal clear. You're giving them absolute maximum value for the amount of time that they're giving you. Excuse me. Remember to make your takeaways, the things that you're giving them, the call to action that you're going to bring to them, make those really clear so that they understand exactly what you're delivering and what you expect of them. So these are some different things you can do when you're creating your script or creating the contents or the outline that you're going to use to deliver to your audience. So that's your script. Should we take some questions about that, your content, your script? See if we've got anything.
Not a specific one yet on content, okay. A little bit related from Mandela Parkway, and that is just the situation or the composition of the room, having a group conversation. How do you avoid having folks overlapping each other, talking over each other? How can
that's well, it's very nice when you have a great moderator. That's the thing. And Odette, the amount of money I pay you is so little compared to the services that you render here. Having a moderator is a terrific advance for me as the speaker. I don't have to worry about that. She keeps that under control. I can see situations like in a regular meeting, if you had 5 people wanting to talk at the same time, or somebody who doesn't want to shut up, or ask questions that are totally off base. These things happen online just as well. And a good speaker, a good professional speaker, which I don't necessarily, I'm not suggesting that you all need to become that professional speaker, but if you're going to stand up in front of a group of people, either live or online, you're going to get people who are going to push back. You're going to get people who are going to ask you questions about their cat. You're going to get people who won't stop talking. And you need to learn to have the wherewithal to control that situation, to interrupt and say, hey, that's a great point. I would love to talk to that. I'll tell you what, why don't you shoot me an email and let's discuss this offline, because I want to keep what we're talking about here online really relevant to the people that are in the room or the people that are online. So you need to develop a little bit of courage to interrupt people, keep them under control, and make sure that that doesn't get out of hand, because I haven't seen it happen too much online, but boy, does it happen in a live presentation. You can get off axis and down these crazy rabbit holes, especially in a question and answer period. Yeah, that's really a time when you need to manage things.
You know, Tom, you were very kind a while ago. I do accept payments in peach cobbler pies from Georgia.
Got it. Oh, well,
But
I have to go someplace to do it. I have to get my mask on and do all that. Peach cobbler, got it. All right, we'll make that happen.
I'm teasing. Marie-Lorraine Molyari, I was actually inviting her if she wanted to do this question on cam, but I'm going to surface it for her. Tom, what's your recommended timeline on scripting? You know, scripting your spiels, scripting your pitch or your presentation. How do you divide your presentation into these digestible chunks and engaging chunks and stay within the limits?
Okay, that's a question that we could go into for days and days. Depending on the people you're pitching to, let's say you're pitching to people you want to invest in your organization. You want them to, or maybe you're in the opposite, maybe end of the spectrum. You're pitching to people you want to volunteer for your organization. So for investors, obviously you want to keep that pitch very short, very, very focused, very pointed. You want to always be thinking about what's their point of view, what do they need to hear. We could go into the various details of it, but there's so many different ways that you could structure that. I'm not quite sure if there is a single best practice. All right, so I do have two thoughts about this. The first is, it's a concept called BLUF, B-L-U-F, and it's a military term, and it stands for bottom line up front. It's a military term for how do you structure a message when you're dealing with high-level people who are very busy, have no extra time, they want to get right to it. So it's called bottom line up front, and what it means is you start off with your conclusion. You start off with where you want to go. So I want to create an organization that does blah, 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 and I need your help. So that's the way you might want to start. Then you would say, let me tell you how I see that happening. And you start at the end, and then you go back to the beginning and you say, here's how we could build that. Here's what that would mean for my constituency. By delivering that bottom line up front is a very powerful way of respecting their time, their precious time, giving them the big details. You could even say, we are asking people to organize and support our organization in these ways. Let me ask, do you have any questions? So that could be an entire pitch right there. You present the goal that you have, ask me some questions, or tell me how you would like to become involved, or turn the meeting over to the people in the pitch and get them involved. And so there's hundreds of ways you can structure these things. But in a situation like that, where you're asking people for money or investment or their commitment, you're talking to high-end people, short, sweet, get to the point. They will respect you if you respect their time.
Thank you, Tom.
The other end, let me just real quick, the other end, let's say you're talking to a bunch of volunteers. You want to paint the big picture for them. You want to tell them how the mission, the reason, you may even want to tell your origin story, why you got involved, why you built this organization, why you think this is such a critical need in the world today, and then invite them to come along with you, invite them to be part of your dream to make that all happen. So that would be a much longer, much more personal conversation. So I think the takeaway from this is diving in and understanding your audience and what their needs are, what their wants are, and how they would want to become engaged with you.
Tom,
Hope that helps.
no, those were really, really valuable points. And I think a little bit related to that in terms of functionality, whether it's on the Zoom portal or any of the online portals that you use in meetings or presentations. You and I, and with Ava and our team, we decided on using the chat box to be our central hub for questions. Evelyn, our co-executive director, raises an important point, literally, about using the raise hands function as well in order to facilitate, you know, a free-flowing and really directed conversation where, you know, everyone's voices, everyone has a chance to share their inputs and insights. And I think depending on the portal and depending on the layer of your membership or your upgrade, that is a function that is also available.
Now, I've had very, very good results with just a casual arrangement. Just jump in and talk, unmute yourself and ask a question, or throw it in the chat or something like that. I can see how this could be abused, or I can see how it could be overwhelming. But I've had good luck with just keeping it on a casual level. If you've got something you want to ask, just jump in and ask. And I think that can work pretty well unless things get out of hand.
And I'm seeing, Tom, that I think several of our participants are going to be in touch with you offline and one-on-one in terms of maybe content questions and other questions. But I'm going to invite you, maybe if you have some wrap-up points here. I know you've got some real critical, you know, a great wrap-up points till the end as we cap our conversation. And then the Zoom chat, the chat box is still open for any last questions any folks might have.
Okay, I have a little section on slides I'm going to blow through real fast, and then we're going to get to if there's any other questions at the end, and then I've got the end is just a nice little wrap up. So let me just go through this real quick. So let's talk about visuals. Keep them simple and visible on your small screen. Most of your content should be on your slides. You want people to be able to read your slides and get most of what you're going to tell them. The amount of words on the screen should fit your style, how good a presenter you are. And I'm going to show you some examples real quickly. So this is the typical slide I would design for a live presentation with a good speaker, a speaker that doesn't need all those words on the screen. They've got the slide behind them and they can just present their ideas so that this is kind of a stage that they perform on. Now, when you're online, you have to deliver more than that, I believe, on your slides. So you may end up with a slide like this. This is similar to the slides I've had here today. These slides were for a client I did a while back, by the way. And they have bullet points, but the bullet points have a phrase on them. You can pretty much get the gist of the presentation just by studying, just by reading the slides. But it allows me to read the slide and then go off on that one point or not if I don't want to. This means that this requires me to be very knowledgeable about my topic, which I think I am on this particular case. And so I can go anywhere I want to go with these. I don't need to have, don't need to be able to read the slide. Now there may be a situation where you need to read the slide, or if you need to build slides that 10 different people in your organization are going to present in different places. So you may need to put full paragraphs on a slide. So just be aware that there's different levels of text, different amounts of text you can put on the slide. On an online presentation, you're going to need to put more text on than you would on a live presentation. So that's pretty much all. That's a quick, down and dirty thing that you need to be thinking about when you're creating your slides. The slides should be spoken. They should move along steadily. We talked about keeping things moving quickly. You don't want a slide to sit on the screen for 5 minutes. You want to keep things moving so that people keep engaged. And you want to build in chat or question times in your slides. So again, that's my quick down and dirty how to do slides for how to do PowerPoint or Keynote for online presentations. So let's do some final questions if we have any, and then I've got a real quick wrap up.
I think folks are taking a break at the moment, Tom, maybe reserving it for some offline questions with you.
Okay.
We're excited to maybe hear your last words.
I got a question.
Okay.
I got a question.
Okay.
A question I had was, Tom, is there a time that is too long for a session?
Let's see, an hour and 15 minutes. No. It depends it really depends on what you're delivering. If you're delivering content like this, where I'm giving you a lot of information, it's almost like an online course or something like that. I think you can go longer. But bear in mind, most TED speeches are under 20 minutes. They've found that is the optimum engagement time for delivering a concept, motivating people, getting them excited about it, and then delivering a takeaway or a call to action, and then wrapping it up. So if that's what you're doing, something like that, you might want to stick to that 15 to 20 minute time frame.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Martin, for the question. Tom, a last word from you and some last
Okay. Let's go back to the zombie apocalypse. Remember the people that I talked to you about. Don't be these people if you can avoid it. One of the things to remember is you're always on camera. Even when the speaker is speaking, you are still on camera. So beware that you should look at least a little bit engaged, a little bit aware of what's going on. Remember the two people that I showed you, the interviewer and the expert. There's a reason he's the expert. He knows how to present himself well on camera on a situation like this. Learn from that simple thing. You want to look professional. You want to be the expert. You want to be the person that people look to. And if you keep that in mind and a few of the tips that I've given you, I think you're going to be so much better than 99% of the people out there, because it's pretty bad. So that's my final tip to you. Go out and do Zoom and be wonderful.
Tom, that was such a great close and just a great way to cap this, as maybe we head into maybe our 5th or 6th Zoom session of the day. As we look at the chat box, just a great appreciation from everyone. April, Daniela, Lorna, Gladys, Marie-Lorraine just saying thank you for all the tips, this insightful talk, and what we're excited about. Thank you everyone for these comments. We're really saving all of it in our chat box. What we're excited about and what we're so grateful for, Tom, you're so gracious to share this deck, this presentation deck with such great valuable strategies and approaches and techniques and resources for all of us. And we'll be sharing that also together with the recording. The recording of this Zoom webinar with you, Tom, will be made available to all of our MIJE network members who have participated, and also publicly and widely on our Medium vertical, on our news, and in an email that I'll be sending together with your presentation deck and any other related resources. And
I'll be sending you, I have an ebook which has got a lot of these principles in it. I'll send you the PDF of that. I'll send you the PDF of the slides, and hopefully the folks copied down my email address. If you've got a question, you want to talk about anything, you want to make sure you tell me it's from the Maynard talk, so I have a reference as to where we connected. But I'd love to hear your questions. I'll answer it as much as I can, as much as is within my area of being having any knowledge about any of this. So I look forward to it. I love working with you folks. This is the best organization, and hopefully we can be back in a real room with actually meeting each other soon. Hopefully within as quick a time as we can.
We're really looking forward to that. Tom, I'll be sharing contact information for you, information about Ready to Speak online courses. I'll get that blurb out to you. You got to tell folks about your book, Fix Your Lousy PowerPoint. The title is compelling. So
I have a book. Actually, it's
talk to folks more about
new, it's a new title. It's the art of presentation. It's basically, it's a lot of ideas about slides, but it's also some basic concepts of presentation, why a presentation is so critical. I must admit, this was written before the current insanity. So it's mostly about live in-person presentations, which are, I think are one of the greatest things that have ever been done by human beings, is to present in front of a group of people. But we have to adapt to the online world. So there's a lot of this that does connect with the online world. And it's something that if we get a little bit better, we're going to be so much better than all the other people out there. It's a real opportunity to elevate yourself way above other people.
Well, Tom, we are so grateful for your time and expertise, sharing all these incredibly valuable strategies and resources, especially amid these unprecedented times where we're living and working in a virtual world. So thank you. And I want to thank all of you, our MIJE program fellows, alumni, partners, supporters, media and stakeholder community members and collaborators that are with us today and you know, joining and attending our digital events regularly. We so appreciate your time and your support. And with our colleague, with our great colleague, Ava, we'll be in touch. We'll stay connected with all of you. Please make sure to subscribe to the e-newsletter of the Maynard Network. I really want to extend our gratitude to all of you and to Tom on behalf of our co-executive directors, Evelyn Sue and Martin Reynolds, and our entire team. Thank you for being with us today. Stay safe, stay strong, stay connected, and thank you so much.
Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tom. And that'll be the end of our recording.
Thank you.